Well, hey there team, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my overview of Synergy. So for those who want to cross it, I do overviews and reviews on this channel pretty much daily. When I do one of these overviews, I just have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind if you want to keep a game or not in that time, and I would generally agree. Broadly speaking, 20 hours in, you're not going to change your mind about what you thought 2 hours in. So it's a short punchy video, keep it around 10 minutes, give you the broad strokes info, and then you can make up your mind with the rest. So Synergy, what a wonderful, mellow little game. I really liked this, and I'm shortlisting it to review and play some more. The 100-foot view it's another Frostpunk-like in this sort of quickly growing genre or subgenre of these colony building, survival type, narrative type games. The big front runners are things like Frostpunk and Ixion, they're kings of the hill. We've seen a couple of other attempts, some good, some not that great. This is really lovely. It's not exactly breaking through and doing super original stuff, but its whole general vibe is actually really cohesive and original and lovely. I shouldn't say it's not doing original stuff. It has a big focus on ecology and specifically how you sort of interact with plant life in your little colony. You essentially have a very scientific approach to it, which expands as the game goes on into, more traditional tech. But the real sort of grabbing point, what makes this kind of stand apart from its general aesthetic, which is quite lovely, is the idea that you have all these sort of alien plant life dotted around all over the map, and there's multiple ways you can interface with them through harvest. So you can pick at them, you can uproot them, which destroys them fully. You can trim them, which steps them back a growth cycle step, but it doesn't destroy them. And each of these different interactions can yield radically different outcomes. Some things, if you trim them, it will kill them, for example, is a plant I've recently discovered. There's another one that I'm trying to balance actually, because if you pick it, you can get mushrooms of it, and the mushrooms I can turn into a more complex meal to feed my dudes and a kitchen. However, if you trim it, you can sort of get building materials like rocks. So it's a sort of rocky outcrop plant thing. And you can only really do one at a time. You have like the harvester stations, so you set them to pick or trim, and uprooting is more of a manual thing. And it looks like there's another 2 more techniques that I haven't unlocked yet, but I will with technology. But even now, it's deep enough to create those scenarios like the one I just gave to you, where I sort of have to balance what and how I am harvesting in which way. There are also potential hazards, like there's a plant that I can't pick because I've researched it with my little bloody field lab. My boys went out there and took surface samples. That's what they do at the moment. They surface sample the plant, and if I'll get another technology where I can do more intense examinations and experiments on these plants to figure out better yields. But there's ones that I can't pick because it will wound my dudes. It's basically just too damaging. So that's the gimmick, that's the shtick, and it's cool. It's enough, to be honest, because it goes hand in hand with this art style, which is it's this painterly looking, it looks like the Tintin comics, albeit much more alien and diverse. As far as backstory, there isn't really any. Like, your guys are referred to as humans, and there seems to be disparate human colonies peppered about, and I did the tutorial, and that was almost an hour or something like that. It was its own mini scenario, and that was lovely, right? The problem with tutorials, I'm almost a tutorial expert because I spent so many years just doing the first 30 minutes of games, is they can be boring. People very quickly figure out when someone's trying to teach them something in a dry manner, and they get flashbacks to school and check out. So what this does is it has a very miniaturized, self-contained scenario, which was kind of delightful to play. And that taught you all the basics. But the game hasn't really explicitly said what's going on. Like, was there a post-apocalypse? Because it kind of feels like that. Your dudes aren't cavemen. In fact, they seem to be quite advanced scientifically. All the machines and art has its own sort of, it's not quite Cronenberg body horror, but like there is a lot of almost like a bio component to it. It's cool because it creates this great suspension of disbelief. You're looking at the dudes filtering the water, and they're basically just stirring a big giant lake of toxic water, and that makes it purified. And if they went for a more grounded, like an 80s futurism tech or something like that, you'd look at it and go, oh, that's dumb. But you look at it here and you go, oh, okay, whatever, that's fine. They're doing something. they're doing something and they're working and it looks cool, and all of the stuff that they're doing is kind of alien, but also within the realm of belief within this world that they've built, which is, you know, testament to their artistic direction. So your dudes are kind of disparate, they're separate. In the main campaign, you're representing an initiative, and it kind of tails on to the mini campaign at the beginning that they're calling the Anchoring, and it's essentially a scientific spearhead. Your dudes are like a little breakaway clan from the tutorial clan, and they're like, right, look, we're aware that there's lots of little human colonies all broken apart, and they're all struggling and they're barely society. So we're going to lead the charge scientifically, collect up these MacGuffin tablet things, which have sort of like ancient knowledge, I suppose you could call it, and try and, you know, rebuild humanity. So there's this vagueness to it, which might grate people, but it still manages to get the spirit of exploration and adventure, and that carrot on the stick that keeps you going through. So it feels very much like these dudes are re-establishing technological roots. But at the same time, it's all incredibly alien. They don't know what any of these plants are, and you send out little exploration teams, and you know, they come across, what was one thing? They I found like an area, it was just like we were lowering objects down into this chasm, and it wasn't hurting the objects, and one of my dudes volunteered to go down, and I put him down, he came back out, and he was blue and covered in runes, and and he had all this knowledge they could read on him, and I was like, that's cool, that's so weird. So it's like, are you on an alien planet? Maybe, okay, but the thing is, it pulls it off. I think most games would shit the bed, but this game pulls it off to the point where it balances the line so well that I am curious and like, oh wow, what's going on here? But also very aware the game's not going to tell me. The game's not going to go, oh no, humanity crash landed on another planet, or an alien friggin' fungus took over the planet and it's I'm never going to know, but I don't care, because the world that they've built is so cool, and the humans in it are totally okay with it. They're on board and they're exploring and learning, and it's just very cool. So it does tap that frontiersmanship, which I love so much that games can get right, of, you know, exploring and pushing boundaries of something that's ultimately feels very alien. Anyway, there's other cool little explorer story events that I've come across, and I don't want to ruin them for you. The game seems to be pretty big into sort of like districting, and there's like an anno-like population bonus thing. You seem to have a sort of score overall that you're trying to push up as a result of balancing all these outcomes, so general well-being for your dudes and their knowledge level, and I think that balances quite well. As someone who's a bit curmudgeon-y, and I'm very much, you know, engineering tech-minded, and, you know, I kind of turn my nose up at art and culture. Like, it's intangible, it's very difficult to turn those things into video game mechanics. Whereas like rock and stick go together, make hammer, like that's much more graspable for me. But this game actually manages to thread the line. You've got two different tech trees, and yeah, very much it is going down the more technological tech, and there is another tree that goes down the more cultural and well-being of the, you know, the mental stability of your dudes. Anyway, I'm gushing a bit because this is really quite lovely. And it's doing what is probably my favourite burgeoning genre at the moment. The Frostpunk Ixion-like is pretty much what I call them now, because those are the two big daddies. And what those two have in common is a kind of sci-fi, oppressive, stressful, you know, like big risk or high stakes, everything on the line. It's very Hollywood, right? And I love that, don't get me wrong. And I would have thought before I saw this game that you couldn't really do it any other way. But lo and behold, this game, same sort of mouthfeel, mechanically, it's going to appeal to you if you like those games. And while I said it's mellow, it does have that sort of feel to it. There is absolute genuine investment. More like, I suppose, how Star Trek Next Generation is a hopeful way of looking at interacting with the universe, and then something like Aliens is not so much, but they're still both great. Not the best analogy, but something I came up with on the fly just then. Anyway, Synergy, I really like it. It's cool. It's early access, which is almost a bit tragic, because I don't really want to stop playing it. Maybe I will review it. It's going for about $35, so yeah, I could bang a couple more hours into this. We'll see. Let me know what you reckon. Check it out yourself. Tim, I might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.